Okay, so early that summer, it's the second string quartet I've written. I actually just got it into my mind I wanted to write for string quartet. I was reading this book about American political history, and one day I noticed this little phrase, early that summer, something or other happened. And the whole idea was that these small little occurrences would happen, and then they would snowball into some kind of crisis or something major. I thought, wow, there's a sense of anticipation in just saying earlier that summer, someone made a phone call. That's in my piece. I realized I was working with anticipation in a really similar way to the way this author was giving us hints of things and then building from there. So I grabbed it for the title. That's where it comes from. I think the whole history of politics and music is certainly a really interesting one, but it's also just interesting what that actually means. I mean, this is our great, political figures like Kurt Weill and Mark Littstein, and, composers that very specifically were working with text, with very clear political issues, and especially in a lot of my recent works, I've also been addressing issues of mostly American labor history in pretty much everything recently. So it's something that's a strong interest of mine. But is the music itself political? There are lots of different levels to that, and I think in a way, I think it's kind of important not to just assume because I use a political text, it's political, because who's playing the piece is part of the conversation. Where the piece is being played, who's listening to it. These are all, I think, very important aspects of who we are working as musicians in the art world. But I don't think it's two-dimensional. I think that's something I'm a little bit careful about. I think that if a composer identifies himself, I'm a political composer. You kind of have to be a little bit self-aware of what that actually means. I mean, for me, there are some very interesting and beautiful ways to get at social or historical or political ideas in a musical context. I think music is a very powerful vehicle, even without words, even without text. But I think it's a bigger picture than that. Well, in 1987, New York was a very different place. And I know when Michael, David, and I, three Bang in a Can co-founders, found ourselves in New York City, we didn't really see an outlet for what we were doing. So it wasn't like we could fit into an active scene or even identify ensembles that would be a natural fit for us. So we complained for a while and drank a lot of coffee, and then finally said, hey, let's do something. And we started to I remember we got this big book of spaces in New York. They probably mostly don't even exist anymore, but they're like somebody's sculpture studio or an art gallery or a wedding hall, whatever it was. We were looking, where can we do this thing we want to do, this kind of happening. There weren't thousands and thousands of people. People forget there were like 50 people in a loft, and that was the kind of scene that it was. It was very intimate. It was in people's lofts or in people's homes, and I think we were building off of that kind of like we were going to do something cool and like an alternative space and an alternative perspective, and now that alternative is widely accepted and celebrated, and that's very cool because I think it was a very exciting kind of music coming into people's ears and minds.